guys, we are starting a new chapter, so let's go.
We live in this incredible world, right? We're surrounded by amazing technology that makes everything easier, faster, and more connected. But behind all those shiny screens and instant downloads, there's a hidden cost. It's an environmental price tag that we don't always see. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a hard look at this unseen footprint.
So that really begs the question, doesn't it? What is the true cost of our modern world? And I'm not talking about the dollars and cents on a price tag. I'm talking about the price our planet pays. To even begin to answer that, we first have to understand what we're actually using. Okay, so to get our heads around this, let's think of it like building a giant puzzle. We're going to assemble our total impact piece by piece. And the very first piece is cropland. This isn't just about the food on your plate. Think bigger. It's the huge amount of land we need for every crop. For food, sure, but also for animal feed and even biofuels. And when we overdo it, we get soil degradation and we lose biodiversity.
All right, next up in our puzzle is grazing land. This piece represents all those vast pastures and open ranges that are essential for raising livestock. All the meat, dairy, and wool products that are such a huge part of the global economy, they start right here.
And then, of course, you've got forest land. This piece of the puzzle accounts for every single forest we rely on for lumber and paper. I mean, from the books we read to the very houses we live in, it all comes from here. And hey, we can't leave out the oceans, right? So the next piece is our fishing grounds. This represents all the marine and freshwater areas needed to keep up with our global appetite for seafood. Then there's the ground right under our feet. Our built-up land is the puzzle piece that covers every city, every road, every factory. It's all the land we've paved over, which used to be a living, breathing ecosystem. And now for the final piece. And honestly, in our modern world, this is probably the biggest one. Our carbon footprint. Now, this isn't land we use directly. Instead, it's the amount of forest the planet needs to soak up all the CO2 we pump out from our cars, our power plants, our industries. It's basically the planet's cleanup crew. And right now, it is seriously overworked. So you take all those pieces we just talked about, the cropland, the forests, the oceans, the carbon, you put them all together, and what do you get? You get a real way of measuring our global footprint. This whole idea has a name, and it's a super important one, the ecological footprint. Think of it as humanity's bank statement with planet Earth. It calculates all the productive land and water we need for our lifestyle. And here's the crucial part. It tells us if you're living within our means or if we're running an ecological deficit, basically using up resources way faster than the Earth can renew them. Okay, so understanding just how big our footprint is, that's step one. Now let's get into the interesting part. How are we actually trying to shrink it? How are we building a greener future? Well, one of the really big ideas out there is something called the Clean Development Mechanism, or CDM for short. What's so cool about it is that it's basically a market-based solution. It lets developed countries invest in green projects, like a wind farm or a big reforestation effort in developing countries, and in return, they get credit toward their own emission targets. It's a clever way to get green investment flowing around the globe. And believe me, this isn't some tiny little program we're talking about. The data shows thousands of these projects all over the world. But what's really fascinating is that a few key countries are leading the charge. China and India, for instance, are way out in front, hosting the huge majority of these green development projects. I mean, just to give you a sense of the scale, look at China's number alone. Get this, 3,764 registered projects. That is a massive, massive amount of investment going straight into green tech and sustainable development. Now, let's bring it back down to a more local level. One of the coolest solutions popping up everywhere is green buildings. And these aren't just buildings with a couple of solar panels tacked on. No, they're complete systems. They slash energy use with things like smart heating and cooling, and lots of natural light. They save water by harvesting rainwater. They're built with sustainable stuff. And here's the kicker. They don't just reduce our footprint, they're actually healthier places for us to live and work. It's a total win-win. But here's the thing. It's not always so simple. A lot of our most amazing new technologies have, well, a bit of a dark side when it comes to the environment. So let's dive into our first case study, the 3D printing dilemma. On one hand, 3D printing is just incredible, right? It feels like something out of science fiction. Making prototypes in hours, creating custom medical parts, it's amazing. But, and this is a big but, there's the other side of the coin. These machines can be serious energy hogs. They eat up plastics and metals. And what happens when the printer gets old? E-waste.
They can even pollute the air and create a ton of noise. It's the perfect example of the tension in modern innovation. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is, people are already working on some really smart solutions. We can run these printers on renewable energy. We can get way better at recycling the plastics and metal powders. We can even switch to biodegradable materials. And for the health stuff, simple fixes like filters, good ventilation, and quiet enclosures can make a world of difference.
All right, from the world of printers, let's shrink things way, way down. I'm talking about the nanoscale. This is where we get into nanotechnology and its big environmental risks.
I mean, the promise here is mind-blowing. We're talking about tiny particles that can deliver medicine right to cancer cells, or purify dirty water, or even help clean up oil spills. But just like with 3D printing, there's a serious catch. If these nanoparticles get out into the environment, they could harm fish and other aquatic life, contaminate soil, and even build up inside living tissues. And the scary part is, we're still figuring out the long-term effects.
So, how in the world do you manage a risk you can't even see? Well, it all comes down to one word: precaution. It means we have to do serious, long-term studies before this stuff is everywhere. It means we need to develop nanomaterials that break down safely, and we need a solid plan for recycling electronics that use this tech. It's all about thinking ahead.
Okay, for our last section, let's tackle a type of pollution that's, well, it's totally invisible, but it's all around us, all the time, and it's a byproduct of our modern world.
I'm talking about electromagnetic fields, EMFs. They come from pretty much everything that powers our connected lives: Wi-Fi routers, cell phones, broadcast towers, you name it. This is the invisible network that keeps us all online. But there's growing research that all this invisible energy might be messing with the natural world in some really weird ways. We're seeing it affect how birds navigate, how insects reproduce, and even how microbes in the soil behave.
So, what can we do about it? Well, it's a mix of things you can do yourself and bigger picture stuff. On a personal level, we can do simple things like limiting wireless devices where we sleep. But on a larger scale, it really comes down to following international safety standards and pushing for regulations that take this invisible pollution as seriously as any other.
And all of this, from the land we use to the invisible fields in the air, it all brings us to one final, really big question. Our power to innovate and change the world is growing at a crazy pace. We can literally re-engineer things from the atomic level all the way up to the global climate. But the question is, can our wisdom keep up with that power? Our foresight, our sense of responsibility, is it growing just as fast? And that, right there, is the challenge for all of us.